Fleet Admiral Kex Vorn pressed his scaled palm against the command console, watching the blue marble of Earth rotate lazily before them. 27 years he'd spent in the Galactic Peacekeeping Corps, and never once had he felt this sick to his stomachs. Yes, stomachs, plural. His species had evolved two of them specifically for moments like this, when the stress threatened to digest him from the inside out. "Sir, the human governments are still refusing our communications," reported Navigation Officer Temlux, his voice carrying that particular tone reserved for delivering catastrophically bad news. They're actually launching more nuclear weapons at each other." Kex Vorn's eye stalks drooped. Of course they were, because when faced with a peaceful alien delegation offering to mediate their conflicts, the logical human response was apparently to ignore the massive ships in orbit and continue trying to turn their own planet into radioactive glass. "How many warheads are currently in flight?" he asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know. 1,700 and counting, sir. The North American Federation just launched a full arsenal exchange with the Sino-Russian alliance. Meanwhile, the European coalition is firing at both of them, and the African Union is... Temlux paused, consulting his readings. "They're firing at everyone, sir, including us." "At us?" Kex Vorn's secondary stomach lurched. "We are in orbit. Their primitive rockets can't even reach us." "They're trying anyway, sir." "Admiral, with respect, I have studied 47 different species' first contact protocols, and none of them involved this level of self-destructive enthusiasm." Through the main screen, Kex Vorn watched another city disappear in a brilliant flash. Mumbai. If his xenoanthropology training served him correctly, that was 12 million souls gone in an instant. The radiation readings from the planet's surface were climbing exponentially. "Sir," came another voice from the communications array, "the Galactic Council is demanding a status report. Counselor Primnexus is particularly vocal about our mission parameters." Kex Vorn's mandibles clicked in frustration. The Council had been clear. Earth was a protected world under the Developing Species Protection Act. But that protection came with limitations. They couldn't interfere unless the species was facing extinction-level events. The problem was humans seemed determined to create their own extinction-level event, and the bureaucrats back on New Harmony couldn't decide if that counted. "Tell the Council that Operation Intervention is proceeding as planned," he said finally. "And by that, I mean we're watching an entire civilization commit elaborate suicide while we debate the ethics of stopping them." Somewhere in the ruins of Detroit, Michigan Master Sergeant Jake Torino pressed his back against the concrete wall, feeling the familiar bite of shrapnel in his shoulder blade. The radiation detector on his wrist was clicking like an angry insect, and the sky above was the wrong color entirely. A sickly green that meant too many reactors had gone critical, too many warheads had found their marks. "Contact! Multiple hostiles, bearing north-northeast." The voice belonged to Private Lisa Chin-Martinez, currently the youngest member of what used to be the 142nd Infantry Division. Now, they were just the 142nd, period. No division, no regiment, no company. Just 8 soldiers trying to stay alive in a world that had apparently decided to kill itself. "Which hostiles?" Jake called back, chambering around in his rifle. "Are we talking about the Chinese Peacekeepers, the European Stabilization Force, or those Canadian psychopaths? Does it matter?" This from Corporal Danny Wright, who was currently applying field dressings to what remained of Specialist Torres's leg. "They are all shooting at us, and we're all technically on the same side." Jake had to admit the kid had a point. When the nukes started flying, the concept of sides had become rather academic. Everyone was shooting at everyone else, and the only consistent rule seemed to be that anyone with a uniform was a valid target. The sound of approaching vehicles cut through his thoughts. Armored personnel carriers by the sound of it, and coming fast. Jake peered around the corner and immediately wished he hadn't. 3 APCs bearing the insignia of the reformed United Nations Peacekeeping Force, which was essentially a fancy way of saying whoever was left alive with working vehicles. "They are not slowing down," he muttered. "Maybe they are friendly," suggested Private First Class Amy Rodriguez, though her tone suggested she didn't believe it herself. "Friendly." Jake laughed, and it wasn't a pleasant sound. Rodriguez, we just spent 3 hours fighting the guys who were supposed to be our allies, while the guys who were supposed to be our enemies offered us medical supplies. I don't think friendly means anything anymore. The first APC's turret swiveled toward their position, and Jake's world dissolved into the familiar chaos of incoming artillery. He threw himself sideways, dragging Rodriguez with him as concrete exploded where they'd been standing. Why is everyone so eager to kill each other? Rodriguez shouted over the explosions. The whole damn planet is dying, because, Jake replied, returning fire with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd been at war for the better part of 3 years. Humans would rather die fighting than live cooperating. It's our greatest strength and our greatest weakness all rolled into one stupid, stubborn package. Above them, barely visible through the smoke and radiation haze, alien ships hung in the sky like patient vultures. Jake had stopped wondering what they wanted. At this point, he figured they were probably just waiting to see which humans would be left standing when the shooting stopped, if it ever stopped. The refugee camp outside Prague, what used to be Prague DR. Emma Vasquez had delivered 43 babies in the last 2 weeks. In a world where most of the hospitals were radioactive craters, childbirth had become a matter of clean water, steady hands, and desperate hope. The irony wasn't lost on her that in humanity's darkest hour, new life kept insisting on arriving. "Doctor, we have got another one coming in." The voice belonged to Marcus Webb, a former insurance adjuster who'd somehow become the camp's logistics coordinator. These days, everyone did whatever job needed doing, regardless of what their business cards used to say. Emma looked up from the latest arrival, a baby girl born to parents who'd fled the atomic fires of Berlin. The child was healthy, which was more than could be said for most of the camp's residents. Radiation sickness was becoming depressingly common, and their medical supplies were running dangerously low. "How far along?" she asked, grabbing her improvised medical kit. "Hard to say. She's been walking for 3 days, trying to get here from what's left of Munich." Emma sighed. Munich had been hit by a tactical nuke during the European coalition's collapse. The fact that anyone had survived the initial blast was miraculous. That they'd managed to walk 40 kilometers while in labor was downright impossible. The woman they brought in was barely conscious, her clothes torn and bloody, her belly swollen with impending birth. But her eyes held something Emma had seen too often lately. The look of someone who had nothing left to lose except the life she was carrying. "What's your name?" Emma asked gently, taking the woman's hand. "Anna," came the whispered reply. "Anna Kowalski. Is it safe here?" Emma looked around the camp. Thousands of refugees huddled in makeshift shelters, surrounded by the constant threat of roving military units, radiation zones, and the simple challenge of finding enough clean water to survive another day. Safe? The word had lost all meaning. "It's safer than anywhere else," she said instead, which was probably true, if summoned by her thoughts. The air above them shimmered with the familiar distortion of alien technology. One of their ships was descending, massive and silent as a falling mountain. The refugees scattered, some screaming, others simply watching with the weary acceptance of people who'd already seen the world end. "Why don't they just land already?" Marcus muttered. "They've been hovering up there for weeks, watching us kill each other like it's some kind of entertainment." Emma had wondered the same thing. The aliens clearly had the technology to stop the war. Their ships were impervious to human weapons. Their communications could override any earthly signal. But they just watched, like scientists observing lab rats in a maze. "Maybe," she said, guiding Anna toward the medical tent, "they are waiting for us to figure out ourselves." "Figure what out?" "That we are worth saving." The black market haven, former Las Vegas captain Rex Morrison, had seen a lot of things in his 20 years as a smuggler, but watching civilization collapse in real time was a new experience, even for him. The good news was that when governments fell apart, the demand for his particular services skyrocketed. The bad news was that most of his clients were now paying him in ammunition and canned goods instead of actual money. "You sure about this cargo?" asked his co-pilot, a wiry woman named Sam Delacroix who joined his crew after the French Foreign Legion ceased to exist. Because if the feds catch us running medical supplies to rebel camps, the feds don't exist anymore, Rex reminded her, checking the readouts on his ship's stealth systems. Neither do the rebels. Technically, there's just people trying to stay alive and people trying to kill them. Sometimes they're the same people. His ship, the Desperado's Gambit, was a heavily modified cargo hauler that had served him well through 3 different interstellar conflicts. Now, it was helping him navigate the ruins of Earth civilization, carrying supplies to whoever could pay, and avoiding the various military factions that seemed to pop up wherever humans gathered in groups larger than 5. Contact on the scanner, Sam reported. 3 ships closing fast. Configurations suggest they are from the reformed American Republic. The ones who declared war on the European survivors last week. Those would be the ones. Rex sighed and reached for the communications array. This is Captain Morrison of the Desperado's Gambit. We are carrying medical supplies to civilian refugees. Request safe passage. The response came back immediately, crackling with static and hostility. Negative, Smuggler. All medical supplies are to be surrendered to military authority. Prepare to be boarded. Military authority? Rex laughed. You guys control maybe 3 states, and half of those are on fire. What makes you more of an authority than anyone else? The fact that we have guns pointed at you. Rex had to admit that was a compelling argument. He glanced at Sam, who was already plotting an escape vector. You know what the really sad part is? He said. Up there, we have got aliens with technology that could probably solve all our problems. Energy crisis, resource shortages, maybe even the radiation cleanup. But instead of trying to talk to them, we are down here shooting each other over the scraps. Maybe that's why they haven't made contact, Sam suggested, executing a sharp banking turn that threw them off the pursuit vector. Maybe they are waiting for us to grow up. Or maybe they're just waiting for us to finish killing each other so they can move in without a fight. Through the cockpit canopy, Rex could see one of the alien vessels hanging motionless in the upper atmosphere. It was beautiful, in a way sleek and graceful where human ships were angular and crude. He tried to make contact once, broadcasting on every frequency he could access. No response, not even acknowledgement. Think they will ever talk to us? Sam asked, following his gaze. Honestly, I'm not sure we deserve it. Aboard the Hegemony Strike, cruiser, relentless conquest, war leader Krothvex was becoming increasingly frustrated with this assignment. When the Hegemony High Command had ordered him to monitor the human situation, he'd expected a quick military assessment, followed by either conquest or withdrawal. What he hadn't expected was to spend weeks watching the most promising warrior species in the galaxy systematically destroy itself. Status report, he growled to his tactical officer. Human military capabilities continue to degrade, war leader. Their nuclear exchange has eliminated approximately 37% of their industrial base and 42% of their population centers. Current projections suggest complete societal collapse within 6 solar cycles. Krothvex's chitinous exoskeleton clicked with irritation. His species, the Vorthike, had fought wars across 17 star systems. They understood conflict, respected strength, honored worthy opponents. But this was waste on a scale that offended his military sensibilities. And their reaction to our presence. Mixed, war leader. Some factions continue to target us with primitive weapons. Others have attempted communication. A few have simply ignored us entirely while continuing their internal conflicts. Fascinating. Krothvex studied the tactical displays showing Earth's surface. In all my campaigns, I have never encountered a species that would rather die fighting each other than unite against an external threat. Should we initiate contact, war leader? The hegemony could easily conquer what remains of their civilization. The question hung in the air like a challenge. By all conventional military wisdom, this would be the perfect time to strike. The humans were divided, weakened, their defensive capabilities compromised. A single hegemony battle group could pacify the entire planet within a standard day. But something about the situation felt wrong to Krothvex's warrior instincts. He'd read the intelligence reports, studied the human military doctrines. These beings were natural fighters, innovative tacticians, capable of incredible feats when properly motivated. The fact that they were currently engaged in mutual annihilation didn't diminish their potential. It actually highlighted it. War leader, his communications officer interrupted. We are receiving a transmission from the Altrian fleet. Fleet Admiral Kexvorn is requesting a joint command conference. The Peacekeepers want to talk, Krothvex mused. How predictable. He paused, considering. Accept the transmission and patch me through to Hegemony High Command. I need to discuss our mission parameters. What shall I tell them, War Leader? Krothvex watched another human city disappear in nuclear fire. Tell them that we may have found something more valuable than another conquered world. Tell them we may have found potential. Back on the bridge of Mercy's Edge, Fleet Admiral Kexvorn stared at the latest casualty reports and wondered if he was making the biggest mistake of his career. The Galactic Council's directives were clear. Minimal interference unless absolutely necessary. But the definition of absolutely necessary was becoming more fluid by the hour. Sir, Temlux reported, we are receiving requests for aid from 17 different human factions. Medical supplies, technological assistance, intervention in local conflicts. They're all asking for help while simultaneously shooting at each other. And war leader Krothvex. His fleet maintains position but shows no signs of aggressive action. His communication suggests he's as confused by human behavior as we are. Kexvorn's laugh was bitter. Confused. Yes, that's one way to put it. He turned to his senior staff. Recommendations? We could implement limited humanitarian aid, suggested his medical officer. Radiation treatment, basic supplies. Nothing that would violate non-interference protocols. Or, added his tactical officer, we could take a more direct approach. Disable their remaining weapons systems. Force them to negotiate. Both options assume they want to be helped, Kexvorn pointed out. Evidence suggests otherwise. The bridge fell silent as another nuclear exchange lit up the night side of the planet. Somewhere down there, millions of humans were dying while others launched the weapons that would kill millions more. And all of it happening under the watchful eyes of two alien fleets that possessed the power to stop it with minimal effort. Sir, came a new voice from the communication station. We are receiving a priority transmission from Earth. Audio only, human frequency. Put it through. The voice that filled the bridge was young, female, and desperate. This is Dr. Emma Vasquez at the Prague refugee camp. I don't know if anyone is listening, but we need help. We have got thousands of people here, including children, and the radiation levels are climbing. The military factions are fighting over what's left of the medical supplies, and people are dying. The transmission crackled with static, then continued. I know you're up there. I know you're watching. I don't know what you're waiting for, but if you have any compassion in whatever passes for your hearts, please, help us. Help the children, if nothing else. They didn't choose this. The signal cut out, leaving the bridge in profound silence. Orders, sir? Temlux asked quietly. Kexvorn closed his eyes, feeling the weight of command in a way he never had before. When he opened them again, his expression was resolute. Prep the medical shuttles, he said, and signal war leader Krothvex. Tell him it's time we had that conversation about intervention protocols. Sir, the Council's directives, the Council, Kexvorn said firmly, isn't watching children die of radiation poisoning while their parents kill each other over the scraps of civilization. I am, and I'm done watching. He turned to the main screen, where Earth continued its slow rotation, beautiful and wounded and utterly, tragically human. Sometimes, he said, more to himself than his crew, the right thing to do is also the hardest thing to do. Today, we find out what we are really made of. 72 hours later, Emergency Medical Station, former Prague DR. Emma Vasquez couldn't believe what she was seeing. The alien medical facility had materialized overnight like something from a fever dream. Except fever dreams didn't usually come equipped with technology that could reverse radiation poisoning in under an hour. The cellular regeneration is remarkable, she murmured, studying the readouts on equipment she barely understood. Little Anna Kowalski's daughter, born 3 days ago amid the chaos. was now completely free of the radiation exposure that should have killed her within weeks. Your primitive understanding of biological systems is quaint, replied the alien medic assigned to work with her. His name was something unpronounceable that sounded like gargling gravel, so Emma had taken a calling him document. He didn't seem to mind. Primitive, maybe, but we are still here, Emma shot back. She'd lost her patience for condescending aliens about the same time she'd watched them cure cancer with what appeared to be a fancy flashlight. Doc's mandibles clicked, and what she'd learned was their equivalent of laughter. Indeed, your species has a remarkable talent for survival despite your best efforts to the contrary. Through the transparent walls of the medical bay, Emma could see the ongoing miracle. Thousands of refugees who'd been dying of radiation sickness were now walking around, healthy and whole. Children who'd been born with devastating genetic damage were playing in areas that had been too radioactive to enter just days before. "Why now?" she asked. "You have been watching us kill each other for weeks. What changed?" Doc paused in his work, his eye stalks turning to focus on her. Fleet Admiral Kex Vorn received a transmission. A plea for help from someone who cared more about saving lives than winning battles. It reminded him of why he joined the Peacekeeping Corps. Emma felt a strange flutter in her chest. Someone from here, a human medical professional working in impossible conditions, asking not for victory or vengeance, but for the lives of children to be spared. Doc's tone carried something like approval. It was illuminating. Master Sergeant Jake Torino was having the strangest day of his military career, and that was saying something considering he'd recently fought a three-way battle against his own allies while the planet burned around him. "So let me get this straight," he said to the towering alien standing across from him. War Leader Krothvex was an impressive sight. 8 feet of chitinous armor and predatory grace that suggested he could probably take apart a tank with his bare claws. "You are not here to conquer us." "Correct. You are not here to steal our resources." "Also correct. And you're not here to turn us into slaves or food or whatever. We find human biochemistry incompatible with our dietary requirements." Jake wasn't sure if that was reassuring or insulting. "Then what the hell are you here for?" Krothvex's mandibles clicked in what Jake was learning past for alien amusement. "Initially, to evaluate your species as a potential threat or ally. What we found was unexpected. Around them, the ruins of Detroit were being transformed. Alien technology was cleaning radiation from the soil, restoring power grids, and somehow convincing the various human factions to stop shooting long enough to accept aid. It was like watching magic, if magic came with incomprehensible user manuals. Unexpected how your species possesses qualities that are rare in the galaxy. Adaptability, innovation, the ability to function under extreme duress. But more importantly, Krothvex paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "You care about individuals in a way most species do not." Jake snorted. "Right. That's why we were busy nuking each other when you showed up." "Precisely." The alien's tone turned serious. "Your wars are not fought for resources or territory. Not truly. They're fought for ideas, for concepts of how individuals should be treated. Even your cruelest conflicts contain elements of idealism that most species would find incomprehensible. You're saying we destroy ourselves because we care too much. I am saying you're the only species we have encountered that would rather die fighting for their principles than live compromising them. It is simultaneously your greatest strength and your most dangerous weakness." Jake looked around at the ongoing reconstruction. Humans and aliens working side by side, former enemies sharing resources and expertise. "So what happens now?" Now, Krothvex said, "We find out if your species can learn to extend that caring beyond your immediate tribes. The galaxy has need of warriors who fight for principles rather than profit." Captain Rex Morrison was beginning to think he'd fallen through some kind of dimensional portal into a universe where things actually made sense. His cargo hold was full of medical supplies provided by aliens. He was flying escort for a convoy of former enemies, and nobody had shot at him in almost 48 hours. "This is really happening, right?" Sam asked from the co-pilot's seat. "We're not all dead, and this is some kind of afterlife." If it is, it's the weirdest afterlife ever, Rex replied, checking their position against the alien-provided navigation data. Though I have to admit, I'm starting to like a universe where helping people is more profitable than shooting them. The convoy they were escorting consisted of vehicles from 6 different factions that had been trying to kill each other less than a week ago. Now, they were working together to distribute supplies and coordinate rescue efforts. It shouldn't have been possible, but the alien intervention had changed the fundamental equation. Contact ahead, Sam reported. Looks like the Swiss Confederation holdouts. They're not targeting us. Well, that's new. Rex opened communications. Swiss forces, this is Captain Morrison with the Geneva Relief Convoy. We are carrying medical supplies and requesting safe passage. The response came back immediately, but instead of threats or demands, it was almost cordial. Captain Morrison, you are cleared for approach. We have prepared landing coordinates and volunteer personnel to help with distribution. Rex stared at the communication panel like it had grown tentacles. Did they just cooperate? I think they did. Without shooting at us first. Revolutionary concept, I know. As they approached the Swiss positions, Rex could see alien ships hovering nearby. Not threateningly, but like patient guardians. Their presence seemed to have a calming effect on everyone involved. It was hard to maintain petty territorial disputes when beings with the power to glass your entire planet were watching with apparent disappointment. You know what I think? Rex said, beginning their descent. I think they didn't come here to conquer us or save us. I think they came here to teach us. Teach us what? That we are better than this. That we can be better than this. Anna Kowalski held her daughter close, marveling at the impossible sight before her. The child who should have died from radiation exposure was now healthy and alert, gurgling happily as she watched the strange ballet of humans and aliens working together. She's beautiful, said the woman sitting beside her. Maria Santos had lost her family in the Madrid bombing, but had somehow found the strength to help care for other people's children. What will you name her? Hope, Anna replied without hesitation. Her name is Hope. Around them, the reconstruction continued at an impossible pace. Buildings rose from rubble with alien assistance, but it was human hands that did most of the work. The aliens provided tools and guidance, but they insisted that humans take the lead in rebuilding their own civilization. Why do you think they really came? Maria asked, watching a group of former enemies working together to clear debris. Anna considered the question while Hope dozed in her arms. I think they came because someone had to, because we were so busy fighting each other that we forgot we were all on the same side. What side is that? The side that wants children to have a future. A shadow fell across them, and they looked up to see one of the alien medics approaching. This one was smaller than the others, with delicate features that somehow conveyed femininity despite the obvious anatomical differences. Pardon the interruption, the alien said in accented but clear English. I am medical coordinator of Valterra. I wanted to check on the infant. She's perfect, Anna said, though she held Hope a little tighter. Indeed she is. Valterra's expression was gentle. Do you know why we came to your world? Anna shook her head. We have been watching your species for some time. Your conflicts, your achievements, your remarkable capacity for both creation and destruction. What we found was a species that cared so deeply about doing what was right that you would rather destroy yourselves than compromise your principles. That sounds like a bad thing. On the contrary, it is extraordinarily rare. Most species learn to compromise, to accept good enough, to prioritize survival over idealism. Your species refuses to do so. You would rather die fighting for what you believe in than live with what you know is wrong. Maria frowned. But that's exactly what we were doing. Fighting and dying. Yes, but not for resources or territory. You were fighting over ideas about how individuals should be treated, how society should function, what constitutes justice. Even your most destructive conflicts contain seeds of idealism that most galactic civilizations abandoned millennia ago. Valterra knelt down to get closer to Hope, who reached out with tiny fingers toward the alien's strange features. We came because the galaxy needs that idealism. We came because a species that would rather destroy itself than abandon its principles might be exactly what the universe has been waiting for. And if we can't learn to work together, then we will mourn the loss of something irreplaceable, Valterra said simply. But we believe you can learn. You're learning, even now. 6 months later, Fleet Admiral Kex Vorn stood in the great assembly hall that had been built from the ashes of the old world, watching representatives from every surviving human faction work together to draft what they were calling the New Geneva Accords. It was messy, chaotic, and involved a lot of shouting. But it was also the first time in human history that the entire species was attempting to agree on fundamental principles of governance. They are still arguing about individual rights versus collective responsibility, observed Temlux. The debate has been going on for 6 hours. Good, Kex Vorn replied. If they were agreeing too easily, I'd be worried they weren't taking it seriously. War leader Kroth Vex approached from across the hall, his massive form causing several human delegates to step aside respectfully. The Hegemony High Command is impressed by the progress. They are requesting a formal alliance proposal and a Galactic Council. Officially, they're still debating whether our intervention violated the non-interference protocols. Unofficially, they're preparing to offer humanity associate membership status. Kex Vorn's eye stalks focused on the human delegates. They were tired, argumentative, and stubbornly idealistic. They were also drafting legislation that would guarantee individual rights while establishing collective responsibilities in ways that most galactic civilizations had never achieved. You know what the most remarkable thing is, he said to Kroth Vex. They're not just rebuilding their civilization. They are building a better one. Better how? They are incorporating lessons from their failures without abandoning the principles that made them worth saving in the first place. They are proving that idealism and pragmatism don't have to be mutually exclusive. From a speaker's platform, Dr. Emma Vasquez was addressing the assembly. She'd been elected as one of the medical representatives, her work during the crisis having earned her widespread respect. We cannot build our future on the ashes of our past, she was saying, but we can build it on the lessons those ashes teach us. We can choose to be better than we were without forgetting who we are. The applause that followed was thunderous, coming from delegates who had been shooting at each other less than a year ago. Do you think it will work? Kroth Vex asked. I think, Kex Vorn replied, that humanity just proved something the galaxy thought was impossible. They proved that a species can change without losing its essential nature. They proved that idealism backed by determination can overcome even the most self-destructive impulses. He paused, watching as Captain Rex Morrison shook hands with a delegate from one of the factions that had once declared him a war criminal. They proved that sometimes the best way to save someone is to give them the tools to save themselves. 1 year later, Master Sergeant Jake Torino, now wearing the insignia of the United Earth Defense Corps, stood at the observation deck watching cargo shuttles dock with the new orbital facility. The view of Earth below still took his breath away. Blue and green, and very much alive, with the scars of the old conflicts slowly healing under careful restoration efforts. Hard to believe it's the same planet, said Colonel Lisa Martinez, joining him at the observation port. Her promotion had come with humanity's integration into the galactic community, along with responsibilities that would have been unimaginable during the dark days. Sometimes I wonder if we dreamed it all, Jake admitted. The war, the aliens, the whole damn thing. The radiation scars on my back suggest otherwise. Fair point. They stood in comfortable silence, watching Earth turn slowly below them. The planet that had nearly destroyed itself was now preparing for its first independent interstellar mission, a joint human-alien expedition to establish a colony in the Centauri system. Do you ever wonder why they really came? Lisa asked. Jake had thought about that question many times over the past year. I think they came because someone had to show us that we were worth saving, even when we couldn't see it ourselves. And now we get to prove them right. Through the observation port, Jake could see one of the alien ships that had become a permanent part of Earth's orbital infrastructure. The Altruian vessel Mercy's Edge served as a liaison station, facilitating the ongoing cooperation between humanity and the galactic community. You know what the best part is? Jake said, we didn't just survive. We became something better. We took the best parts of who we were and built on them, instead of trying to become something else entirely. The stubborn idealism. The stubborn idealism. Jake grinned. Turns out the galaxy needed some stubborn idealists. An announcement echoed through the station. The first human-designed starship was preparing for its maiden voyage. The crew was mixed, humans and aliens working together, sharing knowledge and perspectives that would have been impossible just 2 years ago. Think they will remember us? Lisa asked. The ones who go to the stars. They'd better, Jake replied. We're the ones who taught them that sometimes the right thing to do is also the hardest thing to do, and that it's worth doing anyway. 5 years later, Dr. Emma Vasquez stood in her office at the New Geneva Medical Center, reviewing reports from the latest colonial expedition. The Centauri colony was thriving, thanks in large part to medical protocols developed during Earth's reconstruction. What had once been humanity's darkest hour had become the foundation for its greatest achievements. A soft knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. Come in. Anna Kowalski entered, holding the hand of a 5-year-old girl with bright eyes and an infectious smile. Hope had grown into a confident child, full of questions about the world around her and possessed of the fearless curiosity that seemed to characterize her generation. Dr. Emma, Hope exclaimed, running forward for a hug. Mama says you helped bring me into the world. I did indeed, Emma replied, kneeling down to the child's level. And what a wonderful addition to the world you have been. I want to be a doctor too when I grow up. I want to help people like you do. Emma looked up at Anna, seeing pride and hope in the young mother's eyes. That's a wonderful goal, Hope. The galaxy can always use more healers. Mama says that when the bad times came, good people made sure I could grow up safely. Is that true? Emma considered the question carefully. How do you explain to a child that her world had nearly ended before she was born? How do you tell her that her very existence was proof that even in humanity's darkest moment, people had chosen love over hate, hope over despair? Yes, sweetheart, she said finally. When things are very difficult, a lot of people worked very hard to make sure children like you would have a chance to grow up and make the world even better. Were you one of those people? I try to be. Hope nodded solemnly, then brightened. Then I want to be like you. After they left, Emma returned to her desk and the reports from the stars. Humanity was spreading across the galaxy now, carrying with them the lessons learned from their near destruction. They were still argumentative, still idealistic, still stubbornly determined to do what was right even when it was difficult. The galaxy, it turned out, needed exactly the kind of stubborn idealism. Through her window, Emma could see alien ships in the harbor alongside human vessels, their crews working together with the easy familiarity of old friends. The intervention that had saved humanity had evolved into something neither species had expected, a partnership that was making both civilizations stronger. Her communication system chimed with an incoming message from Fleet Admiral Kexvorn, now serving as Earth's primary liaison to the Galactic Council. Dr. Vasquez, his familiar voice, said, I wanted to thank you again for the work your team is doing with the Andromedan refugees. Your medical protocols are being implemented across 17 systems. Emma smiled. The Andromedans were fleeing a civil war that bore uncomfortable similarities to Earth's own recent conflicts. The difference was, this time humanity knew what to do. They knew how to offer help without judgment, how to provide hope without demanding gratitude. It's what we do, Admiral, she replied. We help people. All people. Indeed, it is why we came to your world, though we did not realize it at the time. What do you mean? We came because we thought we needed to save you from yourselves. What we discovered was that you needed to save yourselves from yourselves. Our role was simply to remind you who you really were underneath all the fear and anger. Emma nodded, understanding. And who were we? You were a species that would rather die fighting for what you believed in than live with what you knew was wrong. The galaxy had forgotten that such species could exist. You reminded us that idealism backed by determination can change the universe. As the communication ended, Emma looked out at the bustling harbor once more. Ships from a dozen different worlds, crews representing dozens of different species, all working together toward common goals. It was the future that Hope and her generation would inherit, A future built on the foundation of humanity's darkest hour. The intervention hadn't been about stopping humans from destroying themselves, Emma realized. It had been about giving them the chance to save themselves. And in saving themselves, they had saved something precious that the galaxy had thought was lost forever. The stubborn, idealistic, impossibly hopeful belief that things could always be better and that it was worth fighting to make them. In her desk drawer, Emma kept a photo from the early days of the reconstruction. It showed humans and aliens working side by side to clear rubble from a destroyed hospital. In the background, barely visible, was a small refugee child watching the work with wide, curious eyes. That child was Hope, and she represented everything humanity had become, living proof that even in the darkest times, people could choose to build rather than destroy, to heal rather than harm, to hope rather than despair. The galaxy, it turned out, had been waiting for exactly that kind of proof, and humanity, stubborn and idealistic as always, had been happy to provide it.